This is Module 2 on Emergency Action Plans and Fire Protection. This material was produced under grant number SH05146 SH9 from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, United States Department of Labor. It does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the U.S. Department of Labor, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial products, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. Upon completion of this session, the participant should be able to recognize benefits of an emergency action plan, identify elements of a fire protection plan, recognize the 5 types of fire extinguishers, including the types of fires they can extinguish, understand the steps to follow when responding to incipient stage fires, and identify hazards associated with hot work. Nobody expects an emergency or disaster, especially one that affects them, their employees, and their business personally. Yet the simple truth is that emergencies and disasters can strike anyone, anytime, anywhere. The best way to protect yourself, your workers, and your production set is to expect the unexpected and develop a well-thought-out plan to guide you when immediate action is necessary. The purpose of an emergency action plan is to facilitate and organize employer and employee actions during workplace emergencies. An emergency action plan covers designated actions employers and employees must take to ensure employee safety from fire and other emergencies. Well-developed emergency action plans and proper employee training, such that employees understand their roles and responsibilities within the plan, will result in fewer and less severe employee injuries and less structural damage to the facility during emergencies. A poorly prepared plan will likely lead to a disorganized evacuation or emergency response, resulting in confusion, injury, and property damage. Few people can think clearly and logically in a crisis, so it is important to do so in advance, when you have time to be thorough. The EAP should cover reasonably expected emergencies such as fires, explosions, hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, and floods. What are some emergencies you could experience on your production set? When developing your emergency action plan, it is a good idea to look at a wide variety of potential emergencies that could occur in your workplace. It should be tailored to your production set and include information about all potential sources of emergencies. At a minimum, the plan must include the following elements: means of reporting fires and other emergencies, evacuation procedures and emergency escape route assignments, procedures for employees who remain to operate critical operations before they evacuate, accounting for all employees after an emergency evacuation has been completed, rescue and medical duties for employees performing them, and names or job titles of persons who can be contacted. Make sure to include procedures for assisting people with disabilities or who do not speak English. A workplace emergency is an unforeseen situation that threatens your workers, disrupts or shuts down your operations, or causes physical or environmental damage. Emergencies may be natural or man-made. Man-made emergencies include fires, explosions, toxic material releases, radiological, biological incidents, civil disturbances, and workplace violence. Natural emergencies include floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, and winter weather. A disorganized evacuation can result in confusion, injury, and property damage. That is why when developing your emergency action plan, it is important to determine the following: conditions under which an evacuation would be necessary, a clear chain of command and designation of the person authorized to order an evacuation or shutdown, specific evacuation procedures including routes and exits, procedures for assisting people with disabilities or who do not speak English, designation of what, if any, employees will continue or shut down critical operations during an evacuation, and a system for accounting for personnel following an evacuation. Methods of reporting an emergency could include dialing 911 or an internal emergency number, or pulling a manual fire alarm. Instructions for exit include pulling a manual fire alarm and using the nearest staircase. Do not use elevators. Make sure to designate a rally point for workers and have procedures to account for employees after the evacuation. Make sure to include procedures for assisting people with disabilities or who do not speak English. Have them proceed to the nearest stairwell or area of refuge for assistance and designate a buddy system. Designate assembly areas or areas both inside and outside your workplace where employees should gather after evacuating. Assembly locations within the building are often referred to as areas of refuge. Make sure your assembly area has sufficient space to accommodate all of your employees. Exterior assembly areas, used when the building must be partially or completely evacuated, are typically located in parking lots or other open areas away from busy streets. Try and designate assembly areas so that you will be upwind of your building from the most common or prevailing wind direction. Take a head count after the evacuation. Identify the names and last known locations of anyone not accounted for and pass them to the official in charge. Accounting for all employees following an evacuation is critical. Confusion in the assembly areas can lead to delays in rescuing anyone trapped in the building or unnecessary and dangerous search and rescue operations. When designating an assembly area, consider and try to minimize the possibility of employees interfering with rescue operations. Establish a method for accounting for non-employees such as suppliers and visitors. Establish procedures for further evacuation in case the incident expands. This may consist of sending employees home by normal means or providing them with transportation to an off-site location. Workplace fires and explosions kill hundreds and injure thousands of workers each year. Fire is the result of the reaction between fuel and oxygen in the air. Heat, fuel, and oxygen must combine in a precise way for a fire to start and continue to burn. If one element of the fire triangle is not present or removed, fire will not start, or if already burning, will extinguish. The purpose of the fire prevention plan is to prevent a fire from occurring in a workplace. It describes the fuel sources, hazardous or other materials on site that could initiate or contribute both to the spread of a fire, as well as the building systems such as fixed fire extinguishing systems and alarm systems, in place to control the ignition or spread of a fire. At a minimum, your fire prevention plan must include a list of all major fire hazards, proper handling and storage procedures for hazardous materials, potential ignition sources and their control, and the type of fire protection equipment necessary to control each major hazard. Procedures to control accumulations of flammable and combustible waste materials, procedures for regular maintenance of safeguards installed on heat-producing equipment to prevent the accidental ignition of combustible materials, the name or job title of employees responsible for maintaining equipment to prevent or control sources of ignition or fires, and the name or job title of employees responsible for the control of fuel source hazards. Ignition sources can include any material, equipment, or operation that emits a spark or flame, including obvious items such as torches, as well as less obvious items such as static electricity and grinding operations. Equipment or components that radiate heat, such as kettles, catalytic converters, and mufflers, also can be ignition sources. Fuel sources include combustible materials such as wood, paper, trash, and clothing, flammable liquids such as gasoline or solvents, and flammable gases such as propane or natural gas. Examples of ignition sources include open flames, like fires and pilot fires, smoking, static electricity, which can be generated when dissimilar materials make contact and separate. Examples include belts and pulleys, tires, and the road, fluids flowing through a pipe, agitation mixing of fluids, and splash filling of flammable liquids. Hot work like welding, cutting, and brazing, hot surfaces, electrical and mechanical sparks, and lightning. A Class A fire means a fire involving ordinary combustibles such as paper, trash, some plastics, wood, and cloth. A rule of thumb is that if it leaves an ash behind, it is a Class A fire. A Class B fire means a fire involving flammable gases or liquids such as propane, oil, and gasoline. A Class C fire means a fire involving energized electrical equipment where safety to the employee requires the use of electronically non-conductive extinguishing media. A Class D fire means a fire involving metal. A rule of thumb is if the name of the metal ends with the letters it is a Class D fire. Examples of this are aluminum, magnesium, beryllium, and sodium. A Class K fire means a fire involving vegetable or animal cooking oils or fats, common in commercial cooking operations using deep fat fryers. In most circumstances, immediate evacuation is the best policy, especially if professional firefighting services are available to respond quickly. There may be situations where employee firefighting is warranted to give other workers time to escape or to prevent danger to others by spread of a fire. One way to limit the amount of damage due to fires is to make portable fire extinguishers an important part of your fire prevention program. When used properly, fire extinguishers can save lives and property by putting out a small fire or controlling a fire until additional help arrives. Portable fire extinguishers are selected and distributed based on the classes of anticipated workplace fires and on the size and degree of hazards affecting their use. Portable fire extinguishers apply an extinguishing agent that will either cool burning fuel, displace or remove oxygen, or stop the chemical reaction so a fire cannot continue to burn. When the handle of an extinguisher is compressed, agent is expelled out of the nozzle. Let's take a look at the label pictured. The classification is 1A:10BC. The letters A, B, and C represent the types of fire for which the extinguisher has been approved. The number in front of the A rating indicates how much water the extinguisher is equal to and represents 1.25 gallons of water for every unit of 1. For example, a 4A rated extinguisher would be equal to 5, or 4 times 1.25, gallons of water. The number in front of the B rating represents the area in square feet of a Class B fire that a non-expert user should be able to extinguish. Using the above example, a non-expert user should be able to put out a flammable liquid fire that is as large as 10 square feet. Dry chemical extinguishers put out fires by coating the fuel with a thin layer of fire retardant powder, separating the fuel from the oxygen. The powder also works to interrupt the chemical reaction, which makes these extinguishers extremely effective. Dry chemical extinguishers are usually rated for Class B and C fires and may be marked multiple purpose for use in A, B, and C fires. These extinguishers will be found in a variety of locations, including public hallways, laboratories, mechanical rooms, break rooms, chemical storage areas, offices, commercial vehicles, and other areas with flammable liquids. Due to the higher heating rates of vegetable oils in commercial cooking appliances, NFPA 10 portable fire extinguishers now includes a Class K rating for kitchen fire extinguishers, which are now required to be installed in all applicable restaurant kitchens. Once a fire starts in a deep fryer, it cannot always be extinguished by traditional range hoods or Class B extinguishers. Do not attempt to use a Class A extinguisher containing water or CO2 on a deep fat fryer fire. An explosive type reaction may result. The following steps should be followed when responding to incipient stage fires. Sound the alarm and call the fire department if appropriate. Identify a safe evacuation path before approaching the fire. Do not allow the fire, heat, or smoke to come between you and your evacuation path. Select the appropriate type of fire extinguisher. Discharge the extinguisher within its effective range using the pass technique: pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. Back away from an extinguished fire in case it flames up again. Evacuate immediately if the extinguisher is empty and the fire is not out. Evacuate immediately if the fire progresses beyond the incipient stage. Most fire extinguishers operate using the following pass technique: pull the pin, this will also break the tamper seal. Aim low, pointing the extinguisher nozzle or its horn or hose at the base of the fire. Do not touch the plastic discharge horn on CO2 extinguishers. It gets very cold and can damage skin. Squeeze the handle to release the extinguishing agent and sweep from side to side at the base of the fire until it appears to be out. Watch the area. If the fire reignites, repeat steps 2 through 4. If you have the slightest doubt about your ability to fight a fire, then evacuate immediately. An employer must inspect, maintain, and test all portable fire extinguishers in the workplace. Visually inspect portable extinguishers or hoses monthly. Perform an annual maintenance check on portable fire extinguishers. Stored pressure extinguishers do not require an internal examination. Record the annual maintenance date and retain this record for 1 year after the last entry or the life of the shell, whichever is less. Empty and maintain dry chemical extinguishers that require a 12-year hydrostatic test every 6 years. Dry chemical extinguishers that have non-refillable disposable containers are exempt from this requirement. When recharging or hydrostatic testing is performed, the 6-year requirement begins from that date. Provide alternate equivalent protection when portable fire extinguishers are removed from service for maintenance and recharging. An employer must provide an educational program to familiarize employees with the general principles of fire extinguisher use and the hazards involved with incipient stage firefighting. Provide this education when employees are first hired and once a year thereafter. Hot work is any activity or process that involves open flames or that generates sparks or heat. Hot work includes any work that involves burning, welding, cutting, brazing, soldering, grinding, using fire or spark-producing tools, or other work that produces a source of ignition. Welding and cutting operations are common during set building. Do your sets require welding? What are some challenges with welding on set? It is important for the employer to have a hot work program that covers hot work requirements, including permits. Require hot work permits in areas where hazardous materials are stored and cannot be removed, or in areas where flammable atmospheres could exist. All hot work is potentially hazardous. Perform an RA, HA, or JSA to determine where the hazards exist. Recognize and understand the job and the hazards of hot work, and follow safe work practices to prevent fires and explosions. If the object to be welded or cut cannot readily be moved, all movable fire hazards in the vicinity shall be taken to a safe place. Precautions taken so that no combustible materials on the floor below will be exposed to sparks which might drop through the floor. Portable generators are internal combustion engines used to generate electricity. Portable generators can be dangerous if used incorrectly. Fires from improperly refueling the generator or inappropriately storing fuel are a main hazard associated with the use of portable generators. Portable generators can cause shocks and electrocution from improper use of power or accidentally energizing other electrical systems. Carbon monoxide from a generator's exhaust can be a major health hazard. Safe work practices when using portable generators include: inspect portable generators for damage or loose fuel lines that may have occurred during transportation and/or handling. Keep the generator dry. Maintain and operate portable generators according to the manufacturer's use and safety instructions. Never attach a generator directly to the electrical system of a structure, home, office, or trailer, unless the generator has a properly installed transfer switch, because this creates a risk of electrocution for utility workers. Always plug electrical appliances directly into the generator using the manufacturer's supplied cords. Use undamaged heavy-duty extension cords that are grounded or three-pronged. Use ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCIs, as per the manufacturer's instructions. Before refueling, shut down the generator. Never store fuel indoors. Never use a generator indoors. Never place a generator outdoors near windows, doors, or vents. If you or others show symptoms of CO poisoning, dizziness, headaches, nausea, tiredness, get to fresh air immediately and seek medical attention. Imagine the exit to the production studio is straight ahead. A fire breaks out and you and your crew need to evacuate. What are some hazards you see and how could you prevent those hazards? Answers include: when preparing your emergency action plan, designate primary and secondary evacuation routes and exits. To the extent possible under the conditions, ensure that evacuation routes and emergency exits meet the following conditions: clearly marked and well lit, wide enough to accommodate the number of evacuating personnel, unobstructed and clear of debris at all times, and unlikely to expose evacuating personnel to additional hazards. If you prepare drawings that show evacuation routes and exits, post them prominently for all employees to see. These are the resources for this module.